Do you observe with a writer's eye? And what do I mean by the writer's eye? The thing that makes you different. It's how you take in information and filter it through your particular vision onto the page. Hello and welcome back to my writing journey. I'm Ellen Byerrum, author of The Crime of Fashion Mysteries and my new Art Deco mysteries, starting with Crooked Tales for Two. And as you all know, I'm working on the second draft. I also write the occasional play, short story, and children's tale, and I make videos on writing matters, advice and information, and maybe throw in a little gossip for entertainment. Thanks for watching and coming along for the ride. Feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a comment, if you will. Today's thoughts are on writing for a summer's day. So I'll keep it short because it is a warm summer's day out there. Your writer's eye might be different, a bit cockeyed from all the others out there. That's a good thing. Do you take in the stories behind what you see? Or do you simply see more than most people? Something different, funnier, weirder than the ordinary. Maybe that's what makes you a writer. The writer's eye. I could easily call it the writer's soul or vision. Do other people think you're strange? That pretty much clinches it. I'm pondering these things because when we write, we all draw on our experiences, what we read or see or people we've met, our families, our friends, our enemies, the theaters we go to, the movies we've seen, the concerts we attend, and the books we've read all contribute to how we feel about the world. All of this adds up to our voice, that specific yet elusive expression that we commit to paper, that marks our writing as unmistakably ours. Our words are our signature, not simply our name. One of my favorite compliments of all times was from a friend who said, "If I read your book without knowing who wrote it, I'd still know it was yours." Most people call it voice. A student may start out aping a famous writer's style, but at some point they find their own voice. They want to go in a different direction. Agents want to see voice. Editors want to see voice. Publishers are looking for that specific book, that specific voice that will just move product. However, I see a problem. Why is there a sameness to so many stories and books, especially in the traditional publishers' offerings? Is this because publishers want the same stories, only different? That's my guess. Because they've turned over decisions to bean counters who don't read instead of people who love literature, love words. I've heard that stories are similar because many writers and editors and agents all hail from the same select socio-economic background, and the books merely hold up a mirror to them. Well, not everyone comes from New York or California or the East Coast. And where does voice come from? Maybe it's our experience. When people tell me I've had an interesting life, I usually think it's the same life you had, without the European vacations, buckets of money and other advantages, the impressive universities. Maybe I simply look at things differently. I always have hewed toward mystery. When I was a child, I would have replied that I had the most boring life imaginable, except for books. Books were lifesavers. I found solutions in stories. Reading was my lifeline. Stories were the way I looked at life, the way I explained it, at least to myself. Every night I silently told myself stories to get to sleep. Didn't everyone? No? Yes? Take a dozen writers witnessing the same event. They will all come up with completely individual stories, because this is not math where there is only one answer. There are a multitude. Writers have to trust themselves, and before you find your true voice, you have to let go of preconceived notions, of having to fill in all the expected slots. Maybe your story takes us in a different direction, and it requires some bravery to do that. To simply let go and write and shut out the negative voices, because believe me, those negative voices are everywhere, and they hate it when you win one. As I said, I was a bored child, except occasionally, like the 2 summers when my brother and I visited my grandparents in Chicago, that bastion of crime and criminals and sensationalism. I was thoroughly warned about the seamy side of the Windy City, mostly because my grandfather was a bank president who had lived through the wild days of the Depression and armed robberies. I was well aware of Al Capone and the Untouchables, so it was not at all a surprise when on one visit we saw a dead woman at my grandparents' country club. It was fascinating because I was 12 and it didn't affect me personally. I will always remember that the lady wore a pink suit and a pink hat on a round pink sofa called a poof. So I learned something new that day. It's a poof. And later, I attended her funeral with my grandmother. Years later, I wrote a book called The Children Didn't See Anything, which was inspired by the incident. And of course, we saw everything. The year after the dead lady at the country club, we witnessed a bus robbery in Chicago. Oh, Chicago, you never disappoint. However, I didn't write a book about it. Not yet. I have crossed paths with 7 killers. File those things under things you remember about your life and how they filter through our tales that we tell. This summer, think about what makes you a writer, what makes your writing different, how your experience and insight and ability makes you the best person to write your story. Is your voice clear and unmistakably yours? So my advice is to take a few moments to step away from the computer, get outdoors, go somewhere, do something different, discover a dead lady at the country club, open up your senses. You'll feel better when you return to your screen and you will have stories to write. That's all I have for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.